stop Exeter.
We're back with Jon Hichborn, the owner of Records on the Wall. Jon, you spoke about your very first client, what you were able to do for them. At some point in time, you decided, you know what, there's a business that can be made out of this. Tell me what you did next after you got your first contract.
You're asking me to go way back here. Yeah, for a while, I was, as I said earlier, a consigliere for the estate of Robert Johnson. They were the only client I had. I never really thought that there were other things out there, but it started to develop, and the more I started talking with people that were recording Robert Johnson's songs, which were a great many, the more I saw that there might be some room to help those people as well. So I believe one of the next bands I signed was probably Foghat, and they had that great song Slow Ride. And I've done all types of advertising and radio shows and TV shows and newspaper and magazine articles. All my business comes from word of mouth. It's just I do a good job for one client and it gets to the next. And that's really how I built this business, is just doing a good job for one client, and that one client telling their friend, telling their friend, telling their friend, and they come to me and they ask me questions and we move forward and hopefully I can help them.
And once they discovered what you were able to do for them, has it expanded beyond just the actual music itself? Because clearly songs are used in videos, they're used in movies, they're used in commercials. Have you been able to branch out somewhat in some way with this?
Oh gosh, yeah. Usually my clients come to me with one specific idea of what's wrong. I don't sign a client immediately right on the phone. They have to do their share. They have to send me a great deal of information, including what they think is missing, or what's wrong, or what's not there. And then I do a little bit of research and I come back to them and say, okay, we can help you, and here's how we can help you. And I would say 100% of the time, it expands from there. That all of a sudden I start to find a whole bunch of stuff. One of our clients is Solomon Burke. Solomon Burke had a very big hit called Everybody Needs Somebody to Love that was recorded by the Blues Brothers and by the Rolling Stones. His attorney had come to me saying that he hadn't received any artist royalties from the record company. Was I interested? I looked into it a little bit. I was really unclear. I knew Solomon Burke was a huge name. So I said okay. I didn't really think that there was that much money there for him. So as it ended up, there was low 5 figures worth of artist money. But it was on an album called Soul Alive, which is actually right up there on the wall. And just out of the blue, I came up with the question with the guy who was handling the royalties. I said, by the way, Solomon Burke wrote 100% of the songs, or at least part of 100% of the songs on this album. Is he getting his writing / publishing money? Now this album was released, I believe, in 1984. He comes back to me a few days later and he goes, no, he hasn't. I said, no, he hasn't lately, because they had a royalty issue system, royalty tracking distribution. That's why he didn't get his artist royalties. They had changed over systems and it wasn't flowing well. And so they tried to use that excuse, which didn't go very far. I got them to pay the money right away, where most of the other people had to wait. We never make our clients wait. But I said, so is it just been the last couple of years that he hasn't gotten his publishing money? And he goes, no. I said, well, elaborate. He goes, well, no money's been paid since 1984. I said, what do you mean no money's been paid since 1984? He goes, well, most of the songs are medleys, either 2 or 3 song medleys, because it's live. No one's ever spent the time to break the songs apart to see who the writers and who the publishers are for each portion of each medley. So I did it for him. I did his work for him. and we got low six figures worth of money that went to the publisher. The publisher then pays the writer, who's my client. I didn't even do the work for the publisher. I was doing the work for my own writer client. The publisher, I believe they ended up shaking my hand and saying thank you. They didn't even bring me to lunch. But so out of somebody that came to me and they said, well, we're not getting our artist royalties, all of a sudden I got them 6 figures worth of money in a totally different area. I'm kind of like a kid in a candy store. I go in there with my eyes wide open and I look for that little hidden jewel and gem and things in the back and on the floor and, you know, top shelf and whatnot. And that's part of, I find, where my value is. I find the stuff that nobody's even thought of.
Is there an equation for the distribution of money between a writer, a publisher, and a performer? And is there sometime a banging of heads between those 3 parties when it comes to getting the money?
Not usually. It's very separate. When somebody records a song, they're considered the artist. It doesn't mean that they're the writer, and it doesn't mean that they're the publisher. So when somebody records a song, let's say under normal circumstances, for a major label, they'll get their artist royalties. But then there's a publisher and a writer, and so the publisher gets their money, and then the publisher pays the writer.
And is that different for every single deal, or is it universal that the writer gets 10%, the publisher gets 15%, and the artist gets 75%?
They're separate deals. The artist has a deal with the record label, and it's usually somewhere, I don't know, let's just say between 10 and 20% of let's just say retail. Okay? A publisher gets 9.1 cents for every time a song is sold. Doesn't sound like a lot.
But it's 910 grand if it was $1 million of sales.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, out of that 9.1 cents, the publishers have to pay the writers. So if you are a writer that is your own publisher, you keep 9.1 cents. If you are a writer that has a separate publishing deal, the publisher gets 9.1 cents, and then the writer gets half of that, so 4.5. And then from there, there's all these different types of deals that you can enter into to generate even more money. For instance, if a song is used in a feature film, you have to get 2 separate licenses. Steven Spielberg wants to use one of my songs in, you know, Jurassic Park 25. He has to get the rights from the master rights holder, who owns the actual recording, and then he has to get the rights from the publisher. And those are separately exclusive. And depending upon the deals that the artist has, he may get more, he may get less than the publisher. It's just, it's very, very separate. But there are so many different ways that we now collect royalties for our artists and writers and publishers that they're totally unaware of. Digital has brought in a whole new genre where most recording contracts for artists state that they get let's just say 20% for physical CDs or albums. If they do a licensing deal, if the production company or the record label does a licensing deal, say for a movie, they split it 50-50. Well, when digital came out, they called it part of the licensing deal, but they were still paying at the 20% rate. Artists started screaming and saying, wait a minute, it's not a physical manufactured product at 20%, it's the 50% rate, you've got to bump us up. The record companies fought it and fought it and fought it and fought it, and there's been a bunch of class action lawsuits, and they're losing. So artists are getting paid a lot more. Plus, when songs are played on the radio, artists do not get money for FM or AM radio. Most people don't know that. Publishers and writers do, but not artists, because it's a common thought that it's publicity. Why is publicity for the artist, but the publishers and writers gets paid? I don't understand that. But now with digital transmission, digital radio, like Sirius XM, Pandora, Spotify, when you play music on your computer, through your cable company on your television, that is different, and artists are getting paid money now. And it's really getting up there where a good artist could be getting a good 5 figures a year just because their songs are being played on Sirius XM. and it's getting bigger and bigger because digital is becoming more and more and more and more prevalent. That's how people listening to their music are streaming. So that's really, really, really doing well. Now there are only a limited number of organizations around the world that collect these digital rights, and you could affiliate yourself with all of them, or you could affiliate yourself with one and they collect on behalf of everybody. So one of the tricks is finding out who does the best job, and this is one of the things that we're doing for our clients now. We're actually switching them from one of these organizations to another because their rules and their regulations are slightly different, that we collect more money worldwide using one company than from the other, which is nice. Now you also have things like you own your own master recordings, okay, but you're not a record label, and you license your music out to a record label. Who owns those master recordings? Well, the original party does. They're just licensing it out. But we're finding that those record labels are going to these digital rights organizations and saying, we're the master rights holders, so pay us. Because not only do these companies pay artists, but they pay master rights holders. So artists can get paid two ways now, if they own their own masters, and if they perform on them. But I'm finding these record companies are now claiming that they own the masters, and they're not giving the money to the actual master rights holders. And so, on behalf of one of our clients, actually Twisted Sister, we went and found 2 record labels that were claiming the rights to these master recordings and collecting these monies. And we got a substantial return for them once we actually used their own contracts to say, no, you don't have the rights to this. You don't have the rights. In fact, one of the companies was actually claiming not only that they had the rights to the masters, but they actually legally owned them through the Copyright Office. I provided them with the document saying, look, you're claiming you own these songs. You don't own these recordings. The band does. And I told the band, I said, look, if this deal ever ends and you try and license it to another label, you can't because you don't own them. So they were eyes wide open. We also have another band called Montrose. Big band starred Sammy Hagar.
Yeah, I remember him. Yep.
I was going through Ronnie Montrose's widow I represent, and she sent me this box of paperwork, and we're looking through some stuff, and I'm finding an old management deal from the 70s, and it actually states that the deal ends in like 1975, and yet the record company was still paying the management company from 1975 forward. Luckily, for some quirky reason, the management company moved and they never gave them a forwarding address. So the money was just sitting there building up. And I went to the record company, I said, that money doesn't belong to them. You haven't actually physically distributed to them yet, so it still belongs to my band Montrose. And because they weren't supposed to get that money after 1975, you need to pay that to my clients. Now this is something that took 6 months to discuss.
Sure. Yep.
I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version, big time. But I got them a huge 5-figure settlement of money that they had no idea was being taken from them.
So you mentioned the word settlement, lawyer, legal. Are you by chance a lawyer?
No.
Or have a legal background?
No.
So you're doing this all without the benefit, or do you have someone in the background that can kind of help you, that kind of brings the lumber, so to speak, when you're having the discussions with these organizations?
We had a conference call with a lawyer today. I can't say hold on while I look that up. I can't say I'll get back to you. I have to know just as much as they do. So I probably do know just as much as they do when it comes to copyright and music law. But I don't even play one on television. I actually spoke to the USC Law School, had a symposium back in like 2007 or 8 or something. They actually had me come in and speak with their lawyers about the music business and the state of the music business. So a lot of people ask me if I'm a lawyer, but not a chance. I don't charge people for paper clips and paper and phone calls like lawyers do. And I do what's right, not necessarily what's right for my client. To me, that's the huge difference. Lawyers, Lisa hates when I say this, but lawyers do what's right for their client. If they know that their client owes $100,000 to one of my clients, they'll try and figure out how to find a loophole in that contract to get out of it. If I know that my client doesn't owe money to somebody, I won't try and figure out a way, or if I know that he does, I won't try and figure out a way to get him out of it. You know, it's my feeling that you get what you deserve. If you owe somebody money, you pay it. If they owe you money, they pay you. I don't try and find loopholes anywhere. To me, that's the problem I have with these music lawyers, is they're always trying to finagle their way out of these deals that they've entered into. I mean, I negotiated a deal, a settlement with a major artist in the 1970s. And when the other side was looking at the contract, they said, well, this contract is so vague and it's so simplistic and it makes no sense. And I said, you wrote it. Well, we didn't write it, our predecessors did. I said, I don't care. It's your contract. Honor it. So they didn't want to honor their own contract. They tried to figure out a way to get around honoring their own contract. So I don't have a law degree. I have taken law classes. I do have people that I go to for specific questions, sometimes ahead of me talking with a lawyer. My job is to outthink that lawyer by 10 questions. I'm going to say this, he's going to say that, how do I respond? So I try and be 10 times prepared more than he is. And I will use some lawyers that I have for that reason, saying, okay, look, how do I respond to this? How do I respond to that? If he says this, what do I say back? What's the legality here? So I do, you know, use them for some things. As little as possible.
So you don't have a lawyer on staff. You're not a lawyer. You mentioned Lisa. Is Lisa someone that helps you with this business or is involved in this business?
Yeah, Lisa co-owns the business with me. She does a great deal of research, and she's the softer side of the business, you might say, where I want to come at people very businesslike, and I'm a very black and white person to begin with. So you either owe the money or you don't. Pay it, or you'll get my wrath. She tries to soften the conversation up a little.
So if your number shows up on somebody in Los Angeles' cell phone, they're looking at it and saying, well, maybe I have a 50-50 chance it's Lisa, so maybe I should answer it. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Excuse me. Most people answer the phone because they know that I'm not going to, excuse my French, but I'm not a bullshitter. I do a great deal of homework before I call anybody. I will never go to somebody and say, I think my client is owed money. I know my client is owed money, and here's why. And it's all laid out. I mean, I have spreadsheets and everything you could imagine. So people know that when I come to them, it's legit. And I have contacts in every major label that always take my call. Which is good, because if I have a new client that's with Warner Brothers, who may have 30,000 people worldwide working at Warner Brothers, and they say that they're not getting their money for a specific type of project, I know exactly who to go to and who to call, and they'll respond to me. I had a guy call me once on Thanksgiving. He wrote me on Thanksgiving for the band The Association. Huge band from the 60s, right?
Oh, yeah.
Us older people are familiar with the band.
Yes.
Yeah, Never My Love and Windy and Cherish and whatnot. And his father was a member of the band who had passed away, and he hadn't seen any money since 1980. And he said that he has tried, he's talked to lawyers, he goes, everybody's gung-ho, and then they start to peter out. He goes, I don't know why, maybe the mafia is involved. He goes, but, see what you can do. So I knew who to call at Warner Brothers. This was on a Thursday. I had to wait till Monday. I wanted to do it the next day.
Sure.
I called Monday. By Wednesday, I had them about $60,000. Now, it took 6 months to get the money, but I knew how much he was going to get and where it was and why he wasn't paid, because the person at the other end picked up the phone and we worked it out. Most people in the record companies, it's a job to them. Their job is to not pay people, but until I come along, the money will just sit. I mean, for instance, I licensed one time a photograph for a movie set to MGM, and it had been like 6 months, and we hadn't gotten the money. Now, the attorney at the other end of the line actually was a friend of mine who I don't call him a friend, but somebody I worked with at Universal. And we played on the softball team and everything together. And I called him and I said, where's the check? He goes, well, it's sitting right here on my desk. I said, why haven't you sent it? He goes, because you didn't ask. So that's what I deal with. People who interview me, like yourself, will say, you know, we're going to be here, what, for a total of, I don't know, an hour maybe? Has the phone rang once since you've been here?
No, it hasn't.
It hasn't, right.
No.
And I get that all the time. Why doesn't your phone ring? Because people owe me money, or my clients. They don't pick up the phone and say, got your money for you, it's on its way. I have to hound and hound and hound. And that's what a lot of my clients don't have the time to do. They don't have the time to follow up. They don't have the time to remember who they talked to. They don't write it all down. So they try 2 or 3 times, they get frustrated, they give up. I never give up, ever.
Well, I guess for my last question, can you tell me about what your vision is of the future for the business?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a very small run company. I mean, you've only met me.
I know half your company, though.
You know, yes, you know half my company.
Yeah.
I do have interns from time to time. It's not a glamorous job. I mean, yes, I do get to go to a lot of fun concerts. I will say that, and talk to a lot of cool people backstage and eat their food and, you know, chit-chat and get pictures and all that kind of stuff. But a majority of it is a lot of back work, research, talking to people on the phone ad nauseum, fighting. There aren't too many people that like to do what I do. In fact, that's why there isn't anybody else I'm aware of that does what I do, because nobody in their right mind would want to do this job. Because of the advancement in the music business itself, most of my clients are older catalog clients from the 30s through the 70s, 80s, where things weren't done the way they are today. Before, they were done on handshakes, loose contracts that didn't necessarily include today's type of media. So there's lots of wiggle room for me to say, well, you know, your contract didn't cover this, and this, and this, and this, and then you have to. You're not paying based on, you know, a contract from 30 years ago. Well, I didn't know, I didn't have the contract. Well, I have the contract. Most of your artists today all have attorneys handling their deals. Every T is crossed, every I is dotted. There's very little wiggle room for mistakes. If they find a mistake, it's the lawyer that drafted the contract, fights the deal. So I don't represent the Justin Biebers and, you know, the whoever else in today's music world. So I don't see a lot of growth, expansion. You know, I'm 50-something years old. I see myself doing this until I don't want to do it anymore. I still enjoy doing it very much. I have my frustrating days like everybody else has in their business. I have a good core group of clients that really, I think, love what I do for them, that I help them, that I'm on their side because they've got nobody else on their side. And they've been lost for years. We just had a meeting today, we were talking with somebody, and the guy said, well, this is the way it's been for 30 years. I said, well, now it's going to change. Okay, yes, it was done for 30 years that way, but it's been done wrong for 30 years. So I don't see this going too much, unfortunately, too much past me, because like my grandfather, who had a wholesale jewelry business from around the world, when he passed away, the business closed within a year because his son tried to take it over, but his son didn't have the contacts. This is all about, to me, personality with your clients, getting along with your clients, and having the contacts to follow up. If people don't know who to call, you're not going to get anywhere. And you got to have that relationship with the people at the record companies, so they know that I'm honest and I'm going to come to them with honest questions and legit questions. And I see that dying out.
Well, John, thank you so much again for your time.
Great.
I love learning about the business. I'm sure we've got viewers out there that will take a look at your website, which will show on screen, and perhaps they'll have some questions for you. They can reach out to you via Facebook.
Absolutely.
But it was a real privilege to sit here and learn more about your business. Very exciting, very interesting. And I'm sure whatever day that is that you decide to retire, it's going to be the next day that someone from your favorite band is going to reach out to you and say, hey, can you help me?
Aerosmith is going to call me the day after?
I hope so.
Oh, can't they call me the day before so I can extend my business? If you want to call me tomorrow.
Okay. Thanks for joining us here on Next Stop Exeter.
You're mysterious ways. You can run all you want, but can you see that knowing me is like a disease? Oh, I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me. I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me. You'll search the world, you'll never find, you'll never see what you saw in me. You took that chance, you went away, and now you're back for some fun and play. If you think the only bad is what you see, I'm silent and creeping, you'll be avoiding me. I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me. I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me. I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me. When you lie, you know that it is me that you see. I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me. And I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me. I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me. And I'm confident enough to say you'll color up because you're thinking of me.